entrepreneur will face a crisis. So the answer is not if, it's when. Some of you guys may ask, what exactly is crisis management, right? So I'm going to give you the actual definition of what it says. It says crisis management, right, is an organization's proactive and reactive process for identifying, responding to, and recovering, right, from unexpected adverse events. Okay, now crisis management literally can come from a lot of different things, and some people may think of those things as like natural disasters, right, or even like cyber attacks, data breaches, right? Those can be different forms of crisis management. Financial crisis, right, viral misinformation, right? All of those things can literally be a source of a crisis management, but it's more so to just learning how to respond, right, when there is some type of adversity going on. Learning how to respond again in a proactive way, because we can always respond, but you have to learn to understand how are we actually going to respond to this particular situation or this particular crisis. Crisis management doesn't always mean like something is tragedy, right, or it ends in death. It literally is just learning how to again be proactive in an adversity situation when it comes up. When it comes to business, right, in crisis management, you have to learn how to remain calm, okay? You have to learn how to remain calm. You have to learn how to literally solve problems. And you actually have to learn how to adjust quickly, because when you are in a crisis situation, your mind literally goes into fight or flight stance, right? And so learning how to literally adjust to something that literally can happen in a split second, right? And we all don't have that, because sometimes we, when things happen, we panic. And in those crises, we have to learn how to, stop, think, and literally put on, right, another hat to say, okay, hey, how am I literally going to deal with this situation in this moment at this given time, and be proactive about it and stay calm, right? And hope for the best, that things are going to work out. And so again, that is a skill. That is something that actually needs to be taught, because we're not taught this in business and in personal life. And a lot of my skills that I talk about is not, yes, I talk about it in reference to business, but you also can use that for your own personal life and situations as well. That's why I call it the non-God-given skills, because I believe that God is giving us those skills to, again, be proactive in our personal life and in our professional life. But today we're talking about business. And so, for example, there was a recently where I had I'm in the process of mentoring my best friend, because she owns a t-shirt business. And some of you guys may have heard this story before. But just to make a long story short, she owns a t-shirt business, and she had like 20 shirts that she had to make for a client. And so the DTF printing that she had gotten from the vendor, they printed out like on a gain sheet, and the quality on the bulk size gain sheet was not the same quality that she had received in the sample. And so she wasn't able to initially press those shirts that was needed for the next day. And so the crisis in that is, one, she began to panic, right? She began to panic because, one, she can't do these shirts. Two, more than 20 people need those shirts for the next day. And the vendor company was willing to, reprint the design. They apologized and to reprint the design and the quality of the sample, which was, the approved quality, but it wasn't going to get here in time. And so, just to literally make a long story short, she had to drive all the way from Virginia to roughly like Florence, South Carolina, to meet her brother, because the vending company is in Atlanta, Georgia. Luckily, her brother stays in Atlanta, Georgia, which is literally only 10 minutes away from the printing company. So he went to the printing company to get the reprinted, right, bulk size gain sheet. He drove 4 hours up. We drove 4 hours down to meet him just to get the gain sheet, and then drove back another 4 hours so she could press those shirts for the next day. And some of you guys probably wouldn't have even wanted to even take that drive 4 hours down and 4 hours back. Suppose she didn't even have family, right, down in Atlanta, Georgia, where the actual printing company or the vendor that she actually uses. Suppose she didn't even have that. What would she have done in that circumstance? So picture, right, yourself in that. But picture that you don't have family members. That is a crisis. What are you going to do in a situation like that? You begin to panic. And it's like, wow, 20 plus shirts, that's a lot of money. You know, am I going to call this client and tell them, hey, unfortunately, I can't do 20 of your shirts, right? It was for a birthday party. I can't do your shirts because, you know, like, what are you going to tell them? Or do you stay calm, right? And figure out a way to be proactive. And sometimes that's what we have to do when it comes to business. We have to be proactive, and we have to learn how to react. But we also have to understand, hey, this is a job. This is what business looks like. This is what entrepreneur looks like. This is what leadership looks like, right? And sometimes we literally have to do things that we don't want to do just to ensure that our clients are satisfied, our customers are satisfied, and that, you know, we are literally solving right, somebody's problem. And so that's what great entrepreneurs do. That's what great leaders do. And so we don't create excuses. We literally have to get to what it is that we need to do. And so every, I think, crisis teaches you something, right? It teaches you the communication, right? It teaches you the planning. And that was a learning process for her as well, because in the process of us going, because I did go with her, and in the process of going down there, I asked her, right, I was like, you know, and if you guys haven't seen that video, it should be already up on my YouTube video where you can see I did a full vlog. And in the vlog, she talks about the lessons that she actually learned in that particular circumstance. And she talks about how, you know, yes, and, you know, maybe she could have, you know, placed the order a little bit sooner. So then that way could have gave her a little bit of, you know, breathing room, which again goes back to another skill, right? That's in the business execution framework that I talk about, which is time management. That was a learning curve for her. She had to learn how to manage her time wisely. Now, yes, on the vendor's end, right, they should have sent her, you know, what she initially approved for. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We're just talking about us, right, as being leaders and entrepreneurs, and how we actually have to deal when it comes to crisis. And so planning ahead of time, learning communication, time management, having backup, you know, plans. But again, just being resourceful, right? Because it was at the last minute, she had to do what she had to do. You know what I'm saying? But again, that just shows the leadership in her, that shows, you know, the entrepreneurship in her. And again, like I said, it's just a learning curve. I want you to ask yourself, what's one challenge, right, that you have overcome that made you better? And that can be personal, and that can be professional. But there's some type of challenge, right? There's some type of crisis. There's something that you have gone through. And how did you do it? What did you do? What happened? How did you learn from that mistake to eventually make you a better person, to make you a better leader, and to make you a better entrepreneur? Inside the business execution framework, I teach the business skills, right, that all entrepreneurs and leaders need when a crisis happens. Because again, it's not if a crisis will happen, it's when, right, the crisis is happening. And so if you are ready, right, to develop those business skills, you need to go ahead, check all the links in my bio, and everything is going to be below in the description. Again, because I talk about that in the business execution framework, and that is inside of our Believe Your Vision Business Development Hub. Okay, and it's a community full of men and women, where I'm just gathering men and women up, but it's to learn those skills, to develop clarity, to develop confidence, so you can take your gifts and your talents and your purpose to create impact, to create income, and to develop and have a successful, purpose-driven business. So if you're ready, go ahead and join. We'll love to have you. If y'all have any questions, definitely let me know. And until next time, see ya.